Welcome back to another episode of the Brilliant Resilient Experience.
My dear friend, where have you been? Where have you gone? Where did you win? Someone there, are you listening? Is it too late? My dear friend.
If you find other people that have big goals and you won't feel as crazy, you'll be motivated.
Welcome back to another episode of the Brilliant Resilient Experience. Today we have a very special guest. This is his second time coming off the podcast. And since his last appearance, he has made some incredible progress in his career. So I'm really excited to talk to him about that. He is a 4-0 professional MMA fighter coming from Lebanon, Missouri. He has a 100% finish rate and is currently coming off of a first-round knockout. He has a fight coming up, and it's going to make his 5th pro appearance in Fighting Alliance Championship on July 27th, so make sure to tune into that. He's looking to go 5-0 in his next appearance, so very excited for everything going on in his career. I'm excited to catch up with him and see how he's leveled up and the progress that he's made. So without further ado, let's go ahead and bring on Ray Sweet Baby Hayes. How you doing, man? How's it going?
Been a good time in between camps. I'm just now winding down off my free time, about to really get ready and start pushing it in fight camp.
Yeah, because your schedule is kind of crazy. You've been extremely active, not only in your pro career, but also your amateur career. So kind of, I guess, give us a little bit of a timeline for those who aren't familiar with you. When was your first pro fight? And then, I guess, how long between your first pro fight and your next one?
Yeah, so my first pro fight was last year in December.
Okay.
And then I turned around and fought in January. And then I fought in, I think it was like March, I want to say. I fought that guy in FA.
Right.
And then I fought Ira.
Right.
Or maybe early this month.
So about a year and a half, I guess?
Yeah, for my pro fights, it's been months.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, December was, so 6 months probably I've been pro around there.
Yeah, and you've had some opponent changes too. Like, I know that seems to be a common thing with a lot of pros around here anyways, but it seems like every time you have a fight, it's like they go through like multiple opponents. How many opponent changes did you have in the last one? And, how do you handle that, I guess?
The last one, we only had one really, but it was out, so it really kind of worried me just because, there was a lot of names thrown at me after that dude dropped, like in that 2-week segment before we found Ira. Like, they were just throwing me a bunch of names, asking if those guys were good, and we just kept saying yes, just please find somebody to say yes. It didn't really matter at that point, but Ricky went above and beyond with that matchup. I couldn't have asked for a better matchup than somebody like Ira.
Yeah.
He was game, he record, he'd been around the sport for a long time, he's done a lot of big things in the sport, so that shout out for Ricky for that. He really gave me a big opportunity on there, and I was happy for it.
Yeah, definitely. I know when I saw that matchup made, I was like, oh wow, like that's a big step in your career. And Ira comes from St. Charles MMA, and you've trained there, so like how good they are, and that they come with a lot of problems, especially on the ground. Yeah, I saw that, and I was like, I wasn't like worried that you were gonna like get destroyed or anything, and I wasn't necessarily worried about him either, but I was like, that might be like a competitive fight. But then you finished it in the first round, and I was like, oh wow, yeah, Ray's the real deal. There's not really a lot to doubt about you at this point, because you keep winning, and it's been really cool to see. And not only that one, but even since the last time we spoke, you had the win at Nemesis, and that was impressive. And that was one thing that I wanted to ask you about, because you've had, like, your last win was on the feet, you use your striking, and then the one before that was on the ground. So do you think you have, like, an area that you're more dangerous? Do you think you're more dangerous on the ground? Do you think you're more dangerous on the feet? Or do you think that you're just dangerous everywhere?
Yeah, so, just because I got so much more experience in boxing, I want to say I'm a better boxer than anything, but I'm I throw all that out the window when it's fight day, and I just take the easiest route. You know, I don't got to prove anything to anyone. I don't want to prove that I'm a better striker than these guys that strike, and I don't want to prove that I'm a better grappler, you know? So I just go in there and I give what you give me, and I'll take the easiest route, make it as quick as I possibly can, and painless on both our ends.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you don't want to sit in there. I remember you said that last time. You don't want to sit in there for 15 minutes. Yeah, I don't I don't blame you. You probably get tired after a little while and not want to be in there. But do you think
Thing
that's
with,
something? What'd you say? Go ahead.
that was a big thing with that Brian guy from NFA. He was a good kickboxer, and he had a bunch of like heavy grappling experience with like Mando Gutierrez and just a bunch of guys that grinded him out but couldn't finish him. So going into that was a big thing. Like I knew I could have stood there and kickboxed that guy for 3 rounds or whatever, and I could have knocked that dude out easy. But the easiest way was just to take him down and control him. That was by far easier. You've seen him come out, and he caught me a few times. But I could have stayed there, took that, and, you know, later in the round ended up hurting him or knocking him out or something. But it was a lot easier, and I did it quickly, just grappling. Yeah. So I'm really good at just tuning in and listening to the game plan.
Exactly. Yeah, you said something interesting a little bit ago that I wanted to kind of touch on, because basically you said, you know, you look for the path to victory. You're not trying to prove anything. And I've noticed something with, like, just, you know, I watch a ton of fights. I watch a lot of regional fights, pro fights, UFC, everything. And I've observed a lot of people's careers go in different directions. And do you think that there are some fighters that have all the skills in the world to become champion, but because they have the mindset of trying to prove something, they kind of hinder their own career?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you see it even like on the local scene. I see guys that are like in the room, they're like super good grapplers, and you can't get them off you. They're heavy. They just don't allow you to do anything, and then they go out there and they'll try to strike with guys, and they'll beat them, but it'll be like a 3-round fight that's just back and forth, you know, boring and stuff. And as a pro trying to get into the UFC doesn't want to see you guys go 3 rounds back and forth fights. They don't want to see that. They want to see you destroying guys and working your way up, you know? So I feel like keeping that 100% finish rate and fighting these tough dudes the way that I'm doing is going to set me apart from the other pros. And I think that's why I'm doing it like a lot faster, why I'm 4-0, why these guys next to me, like even Duran, he's been in the game for years, you know? He's been pro before I even started fighting. So yeah, it's just, I'm going to pass those guys up just because I'm fighting smarter than they are.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you know, there's kind of that whole saying of like work smarter, not harder, and I think you should work smarter and harder. That's my opinion. Like, yeah, work really hard, but also be strategic. You know, like to me, you know, your career should almost be treated like a chess match. Like you should always be planning your moves, and you should be thinking long term. And you should live in the moment too and be present, but like, you know, be thinking about how every, you know, little move that you make can propel you in a forward direction. So I think what you're doing is very smart, and it requires you to kind of put your ego aside. So how have you been able to do
that? Guys around here keep my ego in check, man. I mean, like going back to my home gym, Colton will do it. I go to Fight Club. You got Billy the Kid and Marshall Kemp. They'll set me straight right when I get in there after a fight. You know, I'm not spending a lot of time winning rounds outside of fight night. Those are the rounds that I win. Other than that, I'm getting bullied and put back in my place real quick. So I keep my ego pretty low then.
Yeah. I've heard other fighters say similar things to that, and yeah, I think that's a good thing. I think that sometimes, you know, you need like a confidence boost sometimes. Like you don't want to be like beat down constantly. And you want to have people in your life that are positive, but at the same time, you know, you don't want to live in an echo chamber where, you know, you're basically like the champion of your gym, like, and then you get in the cage and then you can't apply anything that you've done because you are basically like, it almost like tricks you into thinking that you're better than you are because, you know, maybe the people you're training with aren't, you know, skilled in certain areas that you are, and so you're not being challenged in the proper way. And I think that can be an issue too. But you do a lot of like cross training. Obviously Parabellum is your main gym, but you train at a bunch of different gyms and you get a lot of different looks. Do you think that part of it kind of helps you out too?
Yeah. I mean, I got good guys at Parabellum, like some guys that I can't be grappling, some that I can't be standing. But after a long time being like the oldest dude in the room with the most experience, they kind of give you the respect, and you feel like you're the team leader or something. And I just do a good job rotating with these gyms and getting more work in, just rotating me being the hammer and the nail. Some days I'll go to these gyms and I'll do really good and be a hammer, and then I'll go in on a bad day and they'll smash me. So it keeps me level headed, keeps me in the same. I still got work to do. I'm not nowhere yet.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're not even in the UFC yet. So it's like, yeah, you're still leveling up, but you're doing everything right, like I said. And one thing I wanted to ask you about, you'd mentioned last time, I know you're under Jackson Wink management, and you had mentioned last time that you were potentially going to be training there. Have you done that yet? And if not, are you planning to do that for this camp?
Yeah, that last camp I did go up there for 2 weeks. I got to
Nice.
just live in apartments and train there every day. There was they had classes from 6 a.m. to 9 o'clock at night. So I just made my own schedule and got to train all day long for 2 weeks and didn't have to worry about anything. So that was super cool. I learned a lot, wrote a lot down, and built some relationships down there. So I enjoyed that a lot.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah. What was like the transition like? I mean, you come from a very small team here in Missouri, like basically in the middle of nowhere, and then going to a huge gym, where like literally John Jones has been training, so it's like, what was was there an adjustment, or what did it feel different? I guess kind of walk me through that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, right at the beginning, it was kind of like a surreal moment because, the little kid that grew up watching UFC, I was like, holy shit, I'm here. Never thought I would be in this building. But after like a couple days, I started like doing the classes, learning the stuff. And a lot of the stuff they're teaching in that high level gym is just little stuff that we're teaching here. They just change little things. They didn't blow my mind with anything. They didn't teach me anything out of the ordinary. They were telling me the same kind of stuff that Pat Smith tells me. Just little details about little things. They're not trying to change the one there, and they're not trying to blow your mind with anything. They just stick to what works, and they just drill it in your head and constantly repeat it. So I think it just kind of made me believe what we're doing here more, gave me more of a belief system. A lot of people think, oh, when you get to a certain level, you got to go to the big gyms. You got to go to ATT, or you got to go to a Jackson Wink. And I mean, those things help because you're surrounded by the highest level dudes you can get. But at the same time, if you got the knowledge, the work, the partners and stuff here, it's not necessary because they're teaching the same kind of stuff. It's the same stuff everywhere.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. That's something that I've been kind of really thinking about too, because, like I don't train MMA, I train boxing. And I trained a little bit of kickboxing, but like I've trained at several gyms here, and yeah, for the most part, it's like, most coaches, most reputable coaches they're teaching everything right. It's a matter of, do you have the work ethic, and do you have the drive? Do you have the time? All those things are kind of what factors into it. And also, like, I think it's cool to have like kind of like what you do. And this is kind of something that I've been trying to do a little bit more, is kind of get out of my comfort zone and like go take a class at another gym one day, or like go train at, somewhere else for a little while and get, a different experience. Like my original gym was St. Charles, and, I've been back training at Hit Squad lately, and, I really love being there, and it's a super small gym, but it's like, I love that about it. And like, the technique that I'm learning is like really like I'm learning extremely fast, and yeah, like you don't need like the biggest gym, the fanciest gym, the most money. Like sometimes the best training sessions I've had were in like a dirty gym with like old like equipment and stuff. Like it doesn't matter, like it really doesn't. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. It's really interesting.
With like your coach than a big gym with a lot of you. As long as the relationship with the coach is there, that's why I'm always talking about Colton, because we're like, we got the coach and student relationship, but we got like a brother to brother and like a dad to son relationship. It's like three different kind of relationships that we build off of. So I don't have the same relationship with any, not the Springfield coach, not, Drew or Mop or anybody down there, but I can I can listen to everybody. You know, I'm really good at, you know, knowing, hey, I'm the student. These guys have been here forever. You know, there's a reason they're teaching. So I'm really good at like just listening and letting it all come in. And some things I hate and I'm not going to use, you know, I think I'll never I'll never touch it, you know, and I let it go right through my head. And then other things I'll bring back and I'll be like, hey, let's add this. Let's see what we can do with this, you know, and we'll put it in my game. But
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I feel like that's a big thing too, is like, you know, you can take bits and pieces of what someone does and then you can apply it in your own way, and that's how you create a unique style. You know, that's why there have been champions like Yuri, you know, like he has a very unique style that is very non-traditional, and if you took him to any MMA gym, they would be like, you're doing everything so wrong. But he became champion fighting this way. So, you know, there's a little bit of like, yes, follow the strategy, follow the game plan, you know, that kind of thing. But also, like, you know, as you progress in your career, you will kind of develop your own style, and you'll find things that work for you that maybe don't work for other people. And, you know, there are cases where, you know, I think we're starting to see it more where like each fighter kind of has like their own little niche that they find, and you have to now because everyone is so good in so many different areas because everyone is training on a high level. And like you said, you know, like even here, like we kind of get slept on in St. Louis because we don't have the big names, you know, we don't have, well, we're starting to, but we haven't had that for a while. And so now people are starting to realize that there is talent here and there are good gyms here, and we know what we're doing. We just don't, you know, it hasn't evolved yet. So I think that's a big thing. And I think that's why, a lot of these fighters are having success because they have like that one little unique area, about them that makes them unique. So yeah. And that was another thing too, not so much with your fighting style, but like the way that you promote yourself is really interesting too. And I feel like that is something that there's a lot of like old school advice on how to do that we still kind of listen to. And I love the way that you do it because it's actually really similar kind of to like how Alex Pereira markets himself. Like, you know, like when after he won at UFC 300, he did like the meme thing, like, you know, like stuff like that. Like that's the kind of, you know, that's the kind of shit you do. So, so it's like, I love it because there's so many people that think you have to be a trash talker and you have to be Conor McGregor. And if that's who you are, yeah, do it because you'll probably make a lot of money and you'll probably be really successful. But if that's not you, then you have to find your own thing. And I guess, you know, that's kind of what you've done with like, not only the way that you kind of like express yourself in the cage, you know, how you celebrate your wins, but also just, you know, just staying true to yourself. Do you think that's something that's really important for fighters to do, or what's your opinion on marketing yourself as a fighter?
Yeah, so I seen like there was like a post going around. It's something like if you can't sell 40 tickets, then you failed as a fighter or something like that. It was like a promoter or something that posted it, and like everyone was debating it like online on Facebook. I seen a bunch of different fighters share it and stuff. But to me, it's like this is an entertainment sport. You know, no one's gonna buy tickets to a football game or a basketball game if they don't want to see the people play. It's not gonna happen. Yeah. So, I mean, outside of your work, yeah, like your knockouts people are gonna show up if you're doing really good. You know, they're gonna show up to see knockouts. They're gonna show up to see this. But if they don't know you, if they don't know your name, they don't know that you knock people out, it's not gonna happen. So my job as a fighter is to make sure every person in my hometown that grew up with me, that's a casual that doesn't watch MMA, they know, hey, the dork that I went to high school with is killing people in front of their family for fun. You know, like he's out here doing that kind of stuff. So I'm just trying to make sure at least everyone that I grew up with in my circle knows, hey, this guy's doing something. And then by word of mouth, they're going to tell people. And before long, you know, everyone around the area is going to know that, hey, this guy's out here hurting people. So that's all I care about, just getting my name out there so more people just want to see. I mean, they already want to see it. The sport's already growing. They already want to see the stuff. They just need to know who to watch. And my name's going to be out there, and they're going to know to look at me for it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and that was another thing too that I wanted to ask you about with like just the progression of your career and where you see opportunities, because like you mentioned before, you have a background in boxing and you are very skilled in that area. Obviously you're skilled on the ground too, but boxing is where you're arguably probably more skilled than majority of your opponents. So do you think that that aspect of your game is what will separate you? Because now we're seeing like at featherweight, there are a lot of good boxers in that division, and that's your division. So how do you think that you can separate yourself from the rest of the, I guess, your potential opponents and future opponents that you're going to have?
Yeah, I think in the featherweight division, you're not seeing like the top like 5, 10. You see like knockouts and stuff, and you see a lot of bad stuff like that. But before that, like the entry level guys to the top 15, you're not seeing guys like knock people out and finish people a lot. You're seeing guys with less power that just they went on points or they're grapplers or something. But so I think I'm gonna bring in like a different kind of, not necessarily power because I'm not like a super power puncher, but I'm like if you watch like Charles Oliveira or somebody, they're not hitting you hard, but they're knocking you out. I'm out there with the best technique that's turning my punches over, doing it at the right range, and I'm hitting you at the right timing, to knock you out. So I think that's gonna separate me pretty fast. And when I'm touching people, they're gonna get hurt. Every time I touched Ira last fight, he like eyes were rolled up and he was seeing stuff. He didn't know where he was. So when I start doing that to higher ranked people like Duran here in July 27th, and then in the UFC, when I start touching people like that, I think that's going to separate me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because to your point, I mean, there are a lot of good boxers at featherweight, but even like they're more volume strikers than like knockout artists. Like Poirier is probably more of the knockout artist of that division right now, at least if we're talking UFC. But yeah, it seems like there are different styles of boxers too, even within that niche. Like there's volume boxers who can put on an incredible pace, and they can do kind of like what Canelo or Floyd does, and then there's boxers like like Mike Tyson, like just knocks people out and destroys people. So it's like there's different styles even within styles, and we see that with kickboxing too. Like there's Dutch kickboxing, there's Muay Thai, like there's so many different areas of martial arts even within one area. So yeah, that's really interesting, and I'm excited to see that. I love all areas of martial arts, but I am really fascinated with how the growth of boxing applied to martial arts has been, because I feel like that has been like the last like discipline to be kind of evolved into the sport. Like it hasn't really been a big part of MMA for a long time, and more gyms are like doing boxing classes now, and like it seems like it's becoming more of a focus. So I think that's really interesting. And that means also that, a lot of people are probably behind with boxing. So that's good for you.
Yep.
So you can take advantage of that.
Is that everyone was kind of behind with the hands. I was behind like kicking, setting up my hands with my kick. I was behind there, but as far as like just standing in the pocket and boxing, everyone seemed to be behind as an amateur, and now as a pro, they seem to be a little bit behind me.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Yeah, they're probably ahead in the grappling and in the kickboxing. Yeah, like you said, but then, but that's the interesting thing about MMA is there's so many ways to lose, and there's also so many ways to win. It's a really interesting sport. And definitely I would say the hardest sport to compete in by far.
For sure.
I can't think of, I don't know. I can't think of any, maybe like skateboarding, bull riding, extreme sports, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Maybe could be like comparable, but man, not only the physical aspect and like the just potential injuries that you can accrue, I mean, you can like in grappling, you can get injured, kickboxing, you can get injured, you have head trauma in boxing, and then you're mixing all of that together, and then you also have just like the mental aspect of it, of like, having confidence in yourself, believing in yourself, and like you said, being able to put your ego aside and not having like always having something to prove, like, oh, you think you're a better striker than me? Well, let me prove to you that you're not, and then you get knocked out. It's like, okay. Well.
Yeah. that won't be me. I won't be getting into that kind of battle with anybody, no matter how much they talk or want it to happen. So I've had a few guys like still talking like, let's not grapple. You don't need to grapple. Like Trey, he was real big fighting. It's like, no, I'm not. I could knock you out, but that would take me longer. I'm not gonna do that. I ain't got nothing to prove to you. You know.
That's funny. Yeah, I've heard of people doing that, like trying to get their opponent to like not want to strike with them or not want to grapple, or like, you know, and then if you use your grappling, you're a coward or whatever, and it's like, no, this is MMA.
Yeah. Oh, I don't.
If you don't want to grapple, do kickboxing.
Yeah. Yep.
That's funny. Well, speaking of MMA, there are some big fights coming up, and I know. Do you watch a lot of fights? By the way, I don't know if I asked you that before.
Yeah, I'm always watching them all the time.
Nice. A student of the game. Nice.
Yeah.
That's how you have to be, I think. I think it's good to study the sport. But next weekend we have, let's see, Saturday, June 1st, we have Islam Makhachev versus Dustin Poirier. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's, he's already fought Khabib, so he's got kind of the understanding and idea of, how those guys fight. But again, Islam's just he's a different animal than Khabib, so he's got that to deal with. But I mean, if anyone's gonna do it right now, in a spot like Dustin's in, it's Dustin. He's got all the tools to do it. It's just if he can, I don't know. I want to see him do it personally, just because this is probably his last run. Whatever happens, probably not going to get another title shot, whether it be retirement or fighting at 55 or 170. I don't think he'll get another title shot, but so I would like to see him go out on a high. I think that'd be cool just for his legacy. But whatever happens, I'm a deep sure.
Yeah, I agree. I would love to see Dustin Poirier win the belt. I mean, he's been so close so many times. That's why it's so frustrating. Because it's like he's been interim champion. He fought the most difficult champion you could have possibly faced at 155. So, he's just had a lot of very difficult fights in his career and has had a roller coaster of a career too. I mean, not too long ago, he got knocked out by Justin Gaethje, and I don't think a lot of people expected that. So it's crazy.
I think they said this his fourth title shot too. So I mean, a guy like Dustin, if you keep offering something like that to him, he's gonna cash in. He's gonna cash that check. Yeah. So I think he could figure it out this time, but.
Yeah.
Who knows?
And there's always a chance. I mean, nobody thought Sean Strickland was going to become champion, so it's like, I mean, it's crazy. It's one interesting thing about it is that Islam Makhachev really hasn't faced a ton of southpaws. So, like, Drew Dober is a southpaw, and he didn't really strike with him in that fight, so I couldn't really find any, opportunities for Dustin for the striking in that, because he really didn't strike with him. He kind of just took him down immediately, which is what he should have done. I mean, striking with Drew Dober, I mean, people can say what they want and say that Drew Dober's not that good, but it's like, dude, he has power, like a lot of power, and he has a chin. So like, you don't want to box with Drew Dober, like you just don't. And that was when Islam was ranked 14. So that was a lot earlier in his career. But watching that, there was nothing for me to see, and that's probably a good thing for Islam, because then he's not giving away any kind of strategy for any southpaws. But I couldn't find hardly anything. I mean, Dan Hooker, he's switched stance, so that's different. He's not really a boxer; he's more of a kickboxer. So, like, I couldn't find anybody that's similar to Dustin, and I think that actually could be a good thing for Dustin, because it's different for Islam. He's a very different fighter than anybody that Islam Makhachev has faced. So, and he's also very different from Khabib. Khabib is a way more of a grappler than Islam. Islam's honestly probably more well-rounded, but probably a better striker, in my opinion, than grappler.
That his gas tank in the Volk fight was kind of suspect. So
yes,
I mean, got a kind of weird gas tank. He looks dead tired, but he still goes no matter what. So maybe if he can,
know it's strange.
and get that dude tired, he might get something going.
Yeah, I also wonder with the weight cut. So this fight's going to be in Newark, New Jersey. So he's going to be traveling. So I don't know how that's going to affect his weight cut or affect his schedule. But I know that was one of the problems when he fought Volkanovski. So if he has a bad weight cut or if he misses weight or anything like that happens, then I think that Dustin could probably win for sure. Because I think Dustin is more dangerous than Volkanovski. For Islam, for sure.
Oh,
definitely. Yeah.
Definitely.
And I mean,
watching him
and Volkanovski's a beast. You know, he was number 1 pound for pound at the time. Like, that was a number 1 pound for pound fight. So, like, that wasn't any featherweight that he was fighting. Volkanovski could probably fight at lightweight and probably make it pretty far. Like, he's that good. So it's like, but I do think that Dustin definitely presents a lot more problems for Islam than Volkanovski does, especially with like his finishing ability for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one thing about Volkanovski was just he won a lot of fights, but wasn't a big finisher once he got to the UFC. Like he did earlier in his career, but then like we had like a lot of the like I don't know how. What did him and Max fight 3 times?
Yeah.
I think it was 3. They'll probably fight a 4th. I bet you they're going to fight a 4th time. I guarantee you it's probably going to happen.
Crazy.
I don't know why. I just have a feeling they're going to fight again. And I think it'll probably be at lightweight. Like way down the road.
That'd be
I don't
crazy.
know. I've predicted some weird stuff. I'm just saying. It's like, I think that Holloway is going to go down and fight to Poirier, and then I think he's going to move back to lightweight after that. That's what I think. But
Maybe.
What do you think about that matchup?
I think it's probably one of the toughest for Poirier in the division right now. Or to Poirier in the division, yeah. I feel like the other like top 5, he probably's got an advantage somewhere, you know. And I mean he's got a big grappling advantage probably on Max, but Max ain't the easiest guy to take down and hold down, so I think this is going to be the hardest fight for him for sure, and we'll see if he can get through it, you know. He loads up a lot, and he throws like big shots that kill you, and Max is pretty good at not getting hit by those, so we'll see if he exposes all of his stuff and gives away his cards and runs out of gas, or if he can catch Max. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I think that Topuria is a very good boxer with fighters that aren't necessarily great boxers, especially defensively, because I feel like that's the part of boxing people forget. Like, people will see a fighter go and knock people out with their hands, and they'll see a fighter throw like really nice combinations and be like, oh, they're such a good boxer. But if they have no head movement, if they have no footwork, if they have no lateral movement, like if they have none of that, they're not a good boxer. Like, I'm sorry, but they're not. Like, that's just not how it works. So, like, if you look at Max Holloway, like, he has that. He has the defense and he has the offense. Same with Sean Strickland. Sean Strickland has some of the best defense in the UFC. And it's boxing defense. Like, you see it. You see him parry, you see him block, you see him move his head. And he even uses, like, Philly shell, a very unique version of the Philly shell, but a different version of it. And you see other fighters do that. And so I feel like that's something, too, that, you know, maybe there's just a lack of knowledge in boxing in MMA. And so these narratives gets passed around that, like, these fighters are a great boxer. And Max Holloway's like, no, I'm the best boxer. Like,
yeah.
I think that's why he had a chip on his shoulder, because, you know, people, you know, they're not giving him his respect. So I get it.
Yeah.
I'd be the same way, but it's funny. It's funny how that works.
They just translate knocking people out with your hands straight to boxing, and
yes,
a lot of guys grew up doing MMA that never took a boxing class that can knock you out, but you put them in a boxing ring, and we've seen it a lot with the MMA crossover, and they can't box, you know. So
yeah. Well, we just saw it with Paige last night. I didn't watch the whole fight, but I watched some of it. She didn't do that bad. It was a good fight, but yeah, we keep seeing it over and over again. And I think, and it's not necessarily that boxers are better than MMA fighters, because that's not the case. It's just that boxers are better at boxing than MMA fighters, and MMA fighters are better at MMA than boxers. They're two different sports. That's why it's a different skill set. So yeah, it's funny. That's been something I've been like wanting to talk about for so long, and then it's just like, yeah, I finally just have been like kind of figuring out why that's happening and why there are so many fighters that are labeled as boxers that really aren't even boxers at all.
That's like a super weird crossover, because you get all these MMA guys and they can go over compete, you know, they can go make it interesting. So they might be able to beat some of those guys. But if you bring any of the boxers into an MMA fight, it's going to last maybe 30 seconds. I mean, a leg kick, a takedown, anything like that happens, and it's over, you know. It's not even.
That's why I do boxing, because I don't want to deal with all that.
Yeah.
That's why. Like, I tell people that I'm like I don't do boxing because I think it's better than MMA, or because I think it's, you know, whatever. I'm like, I do boxing because I'm not built for that. Like, I am not built for that. My body is fragile. I'm like, one leg kick and I'd probably be like on the floor. So I'm like, yeah, I'm like, I'm good on that. I
never argued it with anybody, because, you know, I could go and box anybody and make it at least somewhat competitive, you know, make it a little way, hit you or something, you know. But if any of those guys that just do boxing, kickbox, or MMA fight me, no. It's any one of the top, you know, if Garcia came over and fought O'Malley in a cage, it's not making it a minute. You know, if O'Malley doesn't want it to, entertain the crowd, it will. But if he doesn't want it to, no. If you tell him, give him, you know, $10 million, if Garcia doesn't last a minute, he's not lasting a minute.
Right. Exactly. Well, getting back to Poirier, because I wanted to ask you another thing, because we mentioned, you know, he had the fight with Khabib, and he almost had him in the guillotine, and he still tries the guillotine. He tried it, I think, like 4 times with BSD, but he hasn't successfully done it yet. But what's your opinion on that? What's your opinion on jumping the Gilly? Like, do you jump the Gilly, or do you not jump the Gilly?
Absolutely. I made an amateur career. Yeah, absolutely. That's in the back on Ira. I told Colton that we were practicing it. Like, I was joking around, and Colton was like, absolutely not. This guy's a good grappler. And anytime I got a chance while Colton was looking, I was jumping guillotine on downstairs. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of it. I mean, it's not the smartest thing, and, you know, 65% of the time it doesn't work for me. You know, other times I'll get people, but it doesn't work 95% of the time. But yeah, I mean, those are the things people want to see. You know, I want to see you choke people. I don't want to see you just sit there and grapple on the fence forever. So jump guillotine. But I think if he does it on Islam, you can't, like, he was able to get up and scramble with BSD, and after so many times, I don't think he's going to Islam. You can't give him that many chances. So hopefully he don't go in the same mindset of doing it 20 times, but, you know, throw it in there, keep him guessing, I guess.
Yeah, we have to see at least one, I guess. One try, and then it's like, all right, if that doesn't work, then like abandon the guillotine, and then stick to your boxing.
If he got him by jumping guillotine to win the title, I would expect nothing less than a retirement. Like, that's the end of your career.
He might as well just be the GOAT at that point.
Yeah.
That would be hilarious. That would be crazy if that actually happened. I don't know. Yep. I think that was one thing that I noticed in the fight with Saint Denis, was just the mistakes that he made on the ground with him. I don't think you can make those mistakes with Islam, especially if Khabib is in his corner, because he's going to be on that immediately. I mean, he got flattened out in that fight. He had his back taken, ended up, you know, underneath BSD, and BSD was in mount. So I'm like, yeah, that's all bad if you're with Islam. So unless Islam is severely dehydrated or like can't grapple for some reason, then might get lucky.
like his Charles Oliveira fight, he made a bunch of like poor grappling decisions, which got him submitted. But I don't know. I see him training with Bush and Gamrot all camp, and those guys are good at of mistakes that you make. So I know firsthand with Dakota, you give him your back and you're not getting away. So yeah, hopefully he's sounded there and rolled those little corners out.
Yeah, that I noticed that too, and that was one thing that kind of gave me a little bit of hope for Dustin too, was just the fact that he's training with like really high level grapplers. Because like I said earlier, Islam is an excellent grappler, but he's not Khabib. Like they are not the same fighter at all. And like we mentioned, he never really fought a southpaw like Dustin. And Dustin has had a decent amount of success against southpaws, and Islam's also a southpaw. So there are opportunities for Dustin as long as he doesn't get too reckless, I think. Then he could win. He could pull it off. He absolutely could. And I wish I would love to see it, because that would be really cool for him to be champion, and even to just retire as champion, I think would be awesome. Like, I don't think he would even need to defend the title or anything to prove his career. I mean, he beat Conor, like when everybody didn't think he was going to beat him, and he's like, yeah, I mean, he's done plenty already in his career. He's fought in 2 divisions. So, yeah, he's fought everyone, literally everyone. So, but getting back to that, I think also on that card will be Grant Dawson, who also trains with Dakota and was in Dakota's corner when you fought, and he was the main event. I think you were the co-main event. Yeah. So that's really interesting too, because Grant is a very high level grappler, very, very high level. His specialty to me is just his control. He doesn't need to take you down very much. You just, once he gets you down, you're there. You're not going anywhere.
He's like a lightweight Aljamain Sterling.
He really is. Yeah, it would be interesting to see him like in a pure grappling match with, some of these Dagestani fighters. I think would be really interesting. Like Islam or Khabib, just a straight grappling match, I think would be really cool. Because I think Islam would have an advantage in the striking with Grant, and would, he's Islam Makhachev. I mean, there's not many people that I think can beat him. I think the only person that I think has any chance, and even still, it's not, I don't think he would be a favorite by any means, but I think the only person that really has a chance is probably either Arman or maybe like Gamrot even. And Gamrot's been criticized lately for his performances, but I still do think that Gamrot is like the dark horse of that division a little bit. And same with Arman. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how things play out at 155.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that was another thing I kind of forgot to ask you about. So dealing with because you're tall for your division. So how has been dealing with your weight cut? Are you comfortable at 145? And do you think eventually you would ever entertain like moving up to 155? I mean, I know you've fought in both divisions, so I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah. That last fight I missed weight by I think it was like 1.5 pounds. But I mean, everything was going right going into it. I just ran out of time really on the weight cuts. All that really happened. I didn't feel bad. I felt like I still had cut in me, but it just really just kind of ran out of time.
Sure.
As long as I can make 45, that's the plan, because the jump to 55 is not bad. That's just 10 more pounds. But the guys that make 55, those are bad. Dakota Bush, so big. All these guys are big and strong. I don't think I'm the fastest 45er by no means, but when I grab a hold of guys, when I hit guys, I'm one of the strongest and biggest 45ers, and that's a big advantage for me. No one in 45s, besides like Woodson, he's 6'3", but no one 6'1" with the reach that I have. I'm not seeing a lot of guys my size, so as long as I keep that advantage, my weight under control, I'll do that. But I mean, I'm sure I'm 23 right now, so I'm gonna grow up and grow into a different kind of body, and it'll probably have to happen. But
sure, yeah. Well, and the reason I asked that was kind of just thinking of Chase Hooper, because he just was at UFC St. Louis, and he kind of did a similar thing. He started at 145, and once he got to the UFC, then kind of made some adjustments, and now is at 155 and doing extremely well. So yeah, it's interesting. But I think that happens a lot too. With like early in your career, you fight in a certain division, and then you kind of change and adapt, and then sometimes you move up, or sometimes people move down in weight. Sometimes people, they realize that they just weren't eating the best, and they could have cut more weight, and they just didn't know. Yep. So all kinds of things happen. So I was just curious about that and what your thoughts were. But yeah, I definitely think at 145 you're a problem. So that would probably be smart to stay there for as long as you can.
I got no problem just because less weight cut, but
yeah,
it's gonna be the right dude. I'm not gonna fight the dudes that walk around upwards close to 200. That's not gonna happen. I'm not gonna do that. But the littler guys that just don't cut a lot of weight, I'll fight them. Yeah, I don't care.
Yeah. Do you think weight cutting is good or bad for the sport?
I feel like it's, if we could get everyone to not do it, I don't know how you do that. I don't feel like that. Maybe put the weigh in an hour before the fight or something, and just get rid of it altogether. Even then, people are still going to like try to come in smaller than what they normally are. So, I mean, I think it's just something that's going to always be there, but in an ideal world, if we could all just walk in and fight, that I think a lot of us would agree on it, just because weight cutting is the worst part about it. We're the only sport that does it, no one else is fucking draining themselves before they compete. You don't see football players trying to lose 20 pounds to go play a game. That's not happening. So if we could get rid of the ideal world, yeah. Or if there was another alter promotion where weight cutting wasn't allowed, yeah, I'd go fight in that. I'd go do that.
Interesting. Yeah, I was curious what your thoughts were, because it seems like it just continues to get less of like something that people are doing to have an advantage, and now it's becoming more of like a requirement almost to compete. Like, I don't hardly know anyone that competes in MMA that doesn't cut weight. So it's kind of crazy, but I just don't know how you would even be able to put a stop to it at all. And like, what's the limit? Like how far can we go before something happens to where their adjustments need to be made in the regulations and stuff. So
I don't know.
It's interesting. I think the more that it evolves, it's going to become even more of a challenge too. Just because even the Amis are doing it now, and that didn't really used to be a thing.
Yeah, but I mean, the good part about that is people are studying it more. I mean, you can't obviously they're not like putting people through it, because you can't have a test subject that you're cutting 20 pounds of water weight off of. That's just inhumane. But I mean, doctors, you see better diet tutorials that you can buy. People got the diets figured out more, and the weight cutting's a science now. It's not just sweat it all out. I feel like people are water cutting less now that I talk to. They're getting smaller off a diet and cutting less water. So that's better that we're figuring more out about it. Even myself, when I first
I agree.
And even late Amy, the 45 fights I was cutting 15, 20 pounds of water. It was miserable. But now that I'm these last couple 40 fights, I've been able to diet down, and I'm cutting way less water weight. So
that's good. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I think it's good too as an AMI. Like, obviously you don't want to be a weight bully as an AMI, but when you're an AMI, to learn weight cutting and kind of, probably start off with cutting as minimal weight as possible, and then, gradually, learning more about nutrition, learning more about how it works. As an AMI, you really shouldn't be doing any dangerous weight cutting, I don't think. I think that is not a good idea.
Amateurs, most of the time, they're not training. Some of them ones now are training 6 times a day, but I know as an amateur I was 2-3 times a week I was training, so I was getting shape. I was and I wasn't eating the best. I was still eating fast food at work and fighting dudes like that. So I mean, you're still getting into shape. You're still dealing with a bad diet. They're cutting a lot of weight then was going to be impossible. That's why I just fought at 55 and stuff. But yeah, I mean, until you get like really serious about it and you're getting to where, hey, I don't want to just do this for fun anymore, then that's when you should probably like look into weight cutting and study it and stuff. Don't ever go into it blind. Always ask somebody, you know, there's somebody, your coach, other teammates, other coaches, you know, somebody knows something about it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I don't know, I guess that's another question. Like, there's a lot of fighters that they spend a lot of time in the gym, and well, pretty much all pro fighters do, or at least they should be. But there are fighters that spend a lot of time in the gym, and then there are fighters that maybe spend a little bit less time. Like Bo Nickel has talked about how, you know, he has more of like a balanced training schedule. I mean, he just had a kid, and, you know, he's got stuff going on, and like, you know this. I mean, you have a full-time, or at least you did have a full-time job, and we're doing a lot outside of fighting the last time that we spoke. So do you think it's, I guess, early in your career, do you think it's more important to have spent more hours in the gym, or do you think it's just more important to be more intentional with the hours that you have and kind of try to have, at least not run yourself into the ground, I guess?
I think there's kind of a weird balance, because as an Emmy, like I said, I wasn't training 6 days a week by no means, but the 2 or 3 days that I would train a week, and that I had, you know, the 2 or 3 hours that I trained, it was with Colton, it was with high level dudes, and I was learning a lot. You know, I wasn't in the beginner's class. I wasn't learning, you know, the simple stuff. I was jumped into the deep end, getting the good rounds in, the good work, and that's how I was able to excel so fast. So we always preach just like mat time over mat years. You know, these like Ira, he's been pro before I started fighting. You know, has a wealth of experience, knows a lot more than me. He could probably teach me a lot of stuff. You know, and in the head, he's a better fighter than I am. But since I've had so much mat time, so many hours, good hours with good people, I'm able to excel in those kind of situations. But that's what I think. I think it's the mat time and the people you're doing it with, you know, not necessarily the years or how much, just the quality of it, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think that's important. I think, yeah, and then as a pro, it's kind of getting both. And then, you know, then you take it to a whole new level when you get to a certain point in your pro career where now your job is more of like recognizing patterns in creating game plans and strategy and visualizing and things like that are really important, along with everything else that you're doing. So you're kind of constantly adding on new aspects of your training and your preparation overall. So the higher the level that it gets to, the more, you know, the more there is to it. And that's why a lot of times we see guys, they get rushed into a higher level, and they might be better than the guy that they fight. But because they skipped steps, you know, they went from being, you know, just on a regional show, and then now they're fighting somebody who fought for a title, you know, in the UFC. And it's like, okay, this is a little, you know, a little bit of a jump. Yeah. And so it's not necessarily that they aren't as good. It's just that they haven't hit those levels to learn the aspects of the game that they need to know in order to compete on that level. So I think that's really important too. The last thing I really wanted to ask you, and then I'll give you a chance to kind of talk about your fight a little bit before we go, but I wanted to ask you, who is a fighter, and they don't have to be like a champion or the GOAT or anything like that, but who's a fighter that has the career that you, I guess, admire the most, or have, like, would you want your career to be similar to them? And then what do you think is like the hallmark of success in MMA? It's kind of a deep question, but I feel like you can handle it.
I watched I don't know if you watched DC and Chael Sonnen's like good guy, bad guy, and they kind of hit hit the same question of, if you had a son and he was gonna do MMA, what career would you want him to have in MMA? And I really resonated with the question. Alex Pereira, he's not been in it long. He doesn't have the accumulated damage. He's 6 or 7 world champs. He's got titles in both 2 different weight classes. He's made a lot of money, but he's been there the least amount of time. So I feel like somebody like that, or like Sean O'Malley, he hasn't he hasn't been there long, but he has a huge impact. I'm not trying to, like, the hallmark would be, start your way from the bottom, beat everybody, everybody in your division, like kind of what Dustin's done. He's beat everybody. He's been around. After he fights Islam, who's he gonna fight? He can't go down and it's just gonna be rematch after rematch is all it's gonna be. So I feel like that's the hallmark. That's the real way to do it, would just be fighting everybody. But the idea career would be get in there, make as much money as you can, get as much exposure, get as big as you can, as fast as you can. If I can get to a title as that quick, and get there, then once you get so much money, you're good. You don't have to continue doing this stuff for nothing anymore. But that would be a career.
Yeah.
And Alex Pereira or Sean O'Malley, just somebody that gets to the point to where they're making a lot of money, because a lot of guys spend their times in the lower ranks and they don't get paid, and they'll either start losing or they'll get cut. And it's like, they had a good career, they did good, but they weren't getting paid. They couldn't make a real great living off of it. So I want to get to the point where I'm getting paid really well or really quick.
That's a good goal.
Yeah.
Nice. Very interesting. Yeah, I really like that idea too of just, I think people put too much emphasis on certain things with a fighter's career. Like if you didn't fight for a title or if you didn't become champion, then your career wasn't good. And it's like, well, actually, no, you can have a great career without ever even fighting for a title. Obviously, that's the goal for most people. But for some people, I don't even think that they want that. Like, I don't think that is their real purpose for doing it. So I think it also depends on the purpose. Like, what is your purpose as a fighter? What are you trying to get out of this? What are you trying to achieve? What kind of legacy are you trying to leave? And then that is kind of what's going to determine what you believe is success. So I think that's important too. But getting back to you have this fight coming up July 27th. And tell me, I guess, a little bit about your opponent, and without giving away your game plan, how you see this fight going or what we can expect from you.
Yeah. So it'll be my first 5-round fight. I'm gonna be the main event there, so I'll have a 5-round fight. I watched a lot of his fights already. I watched he had a comeback fight. He was laid off for like 5 years or something. He fought Montel Jackson, who's like 13-2 in the UFC now, but fought him at 35 and then took a big layoff, and he came back at 45 for FAC, and he beat some dude. But I remember I watched that fight live, and I was like, hey, that's my division, and I wasn't really completely impressed. I was like, and I wasn't even a pro then. I may have one pro fight. I don't even think I was a pro, but I was like, I think I match up well with that guy. I don't think he's crazy good. But then I go back and I watch his fights, and I mean, I think he's got a hole in his stand up. Especially boxing. His boxing's not very good. His grappling's good. He's used to be a Glory guy. Now he's I think an Ignite Fire was that coming. So I mean, those guys are really good grapplers. They know the systems. They have their own kind of grappling system. But I think I'm probably the worst matchup as far as 45ers around here go, because I spent so much time as an amateur fighting those KC guys. I made a career of going to KC or going to Springfield and beating up those guys in front of their crowds. So for the longest time, I wasn't the favorite fighting those guys, but we've got such a good understanding of how they work and a game plan of how those guys all operate. So many times you get like different fighters in gyms, but as a whole, they're all being taught the same thing. They all pick up the same things. A lot of them are going to act and do the same things, especially a guy that's been in the same system for so long, like Duran. He's been there forever, so he's going to have the same patterns and do the same things that these guys that have already fought, the Buck Cannons, the Mason Pillows. That's going to be the same kind of thing. But I definitely think he's got a major hole in his stand up, and he gets hurt a lot. So I'm not the guy to get hurt on and let you live. If I hurt you, you're not getting a second chance in there. I won't let that happen. So I could see me knocking him out early. I don't think it's going to go 5 rounds. I think he'd be lucky to get out of the second, but that's how I see it going, really. Just a knockout before the second round would be what I'm seeing.
Okay. I mean, you've done it before, so I have no reason to doubt you until you give me one.
Yep.
But that's awesome. That's awesome. That's really exciting. And that's going to be in Kansas City. So is that like kind of, so you're not from St. Louis or Kansas City, so do you feel like you're on enemy territory, or do you feel like you're on home territory when you're in either city?
So it kind of depends. Like St. Louis, I fought with Nemesis probably more than any other promotion. So now like I'm the home team. The people there know me. The guys all cool with me. They treat me like I'm the home team. But if I go there and I fight a Wolvesden guy or a St. Louis guy, I'm the outsider for sure. That's the same thing with some of the KC guys.
Sure.
I'm a home team in Springfield. Everyone around knows me in Springfield. I'm 40 minutes away. Unless I'm fighting a Fight Club dude, I'm a home team there. But FAC,
right,
that's a glory promotion. They line their side with their guys. And they try to bring in guys to fight their guys and help their guys with the platform. You see like Gage Young and Zach Scroggins, those guys excel, and they send guys to the UFC doing it. They'll bring in hard matchups from all over the world. So I definitely think I'm going into enemy territory. I'm definitely the B side. He's gonna have his whole family, his team there. That's gonna be his show. But I've done it before. I fought Austin Spangler. He was the same way. He was out of that gym. He was the home side. You couldn't hear a guy cheering for me in the building. But I'm used to that. I'll do it again.
Nice. Yeah, I'm excited. It's gonna be cool. And you said it's gonna be in like a bigger arena?
Yeah, so their arena's like in a hockey stadium. It's got like jumbotron and lights all around it, and 2 stories of TVs, and they got like the little suites that the arenas have. So I mean, it's like the venue itself is, to me, it's gonna be the closest you can get to the UFC around here. That's a big time venue. They carry themselves really professional. I mean, every person that's held the title before me went to the UFC. All 5 title holders that they've had has gone to the UFC. So, I mean, the guys that they put in title positions, they don't put them there for no reason. They have a very reputable promotion. They put out high performances. They're not like putting on bums or just building fights for no reason. They're putting together good cards. So I think it's one of the higher level promotions in the area, in Missouri. It's one of the better ones we have, and a lot of the littler shows should definitely, watch them and steal stuff from them. I know Zach is like in with it, and he's got Synergy now, so I know, he's the ins and outs. I think that's why Synergy is excelling so well, is because they're able to steal from FAC a little bit, But yeah, I'm super excited. I feel like it's one of my favorite shows to fight on for sure, just because the big time feel.
Yeah, definitely. Did you go to UFC?
I didn't go to the St. Louis show. No, I went to the last.
Oh, okay. I was just curious.
I went.
You went to the last one they did?
In Kansas City.
Oh, that's right, because they were in Kansas City before they came here. So nice. Yeah, so you've experienced that, so you kind of have a feel for it. That's cool. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. That's cool that you're getting these opportunities this early in your career. That's really going to help prepare you for, when you do get to the UFC and you do have, these big fights and these big moments, you're going to be more mentally prepared for that. So that's awesome. That's great. That's really cool. Well, I appreciate you coming back on. It's been great chatting with you. I'm really excited for everything that you're doing, everything that you've accomplished. Obviously, been watching your career for a little while now. And very excited for it. And just, I'll give you the opportunity. Anything else that you want to leave me with or leave the audience with, and any sponsors or anybody you want to shout out, the floor is yours. So.
Right now I'm still closing in on sponsors for this camp. So I don't really, I got my normal ones like Extra Rep and Dynamic Towing and people like that have just been here through the whole thing with me. But, I'm closing in. I'll make posts for all my sponsors and stuff. But, really just, this is going to be like one of the last few fights where I'm around here, I truly believe that it's going to be the end of this year or next year, and I'm going to be there, it's going to be faster than anyone else, I feel like. So just, get tickets, see it while you can, because I'm not here forever, for sure.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, cash in now. You got to get on the Ray Hayes bandwagon while you can. Otherwise, it's gonna run away. So, That's awesome. Well, thank you. I will let you get back to your Sunday. I appreciate you chatting with me, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Too.